Hey everyone, and welcome. Today, we're diving into a question that literally shapes millions of lives every year. How do we fairly decide who gets into college? This is a huge global debate, pitting two totally different philosophies against each other. So, which one is better?
I mean, really think about that for a second. All your years of studying, all your hopes, all your family's dreams, all of it boiling down to how you perform on one specific day. For millions and millions of students around the world, this isn't some philosophical question. It's the reality.
So first up, let's look at this system, the single, high-stakes exam. You've probably heard of some of the big ones. We see this model all over Asia, like with China's incredibly intense Gaokao or South Korea's Suneung, where the entire country basically shuts down on test day.
The idea is pretty simple, right? It's one massive standardized test held just once a year. And your score? Well, it's not just a grade. It's often the only thing that matters when it comes to what universities you can even think about applying to. The pressure is just insane because there are no do-overs.
And there's this common saying that just perfectly captures the whole feeling of it. One test decides your life. It's this belief that your entire future hinges on that one performance. You can just imagine the pressure cooker environment that creates for students and their families.
Okay, so now let's flip the script completely and look at a totally different approach. In places like the United States, the system isn't built on one single shot, but on many. You know, like the SAT or the ACT, exams you can take over and over again.
And wow, the difference is night and day. On one side, you have the one-shot exam. It's one test, one day, super high pressure. Your one score is everything. But on the other side, you've got the multiple try system. It's flexible, it's strategic, you can retake it, send in your best score, and sometimes even combine your best section scores into what's called a superscore.
So this brings us to the absolute heart of the matter. Which system is actually fairer? And to answer that, we really need to get that fairness can mean two completely different things. Let's dig into this idea of formal versus substantive equality.
So you've got formal equality. That's the whole idea behind the single exam system. Everyone gets the exact same test on the exact same day under the exact same rules. On the surface, that sounds perfectly fair, doesn't it? But then you have substantive equality, which says, hold on a second. What if you just got unlucky with the questions? What if the test just happened to focus on your weak spots? This view argues that by allowing multiple attempts, you can average out that luck factor, which might actually lead to a fair result in the end.
So you can see the trade-off here, right? With the single exam, you could be the smartest kid in the room, but if you wake up with a horrible headache or just have a bad day, bam, it's over. But the multiple exam system, well, that can give a huge leg up to students who have the money for all those retakes and expensive tutors.
Okay, so let's get real about what this actually means for students. Because beyond all the theory, these systems create very, very different kinds of stress and, totally different kinds of races for resources.
And this chart really paints a clear picture. For the single exam, the pressure is overwhelmingly psychological. That one-and-done stress is massive. It also causes this washback effect, which is when teachers basically have to teach to the test, and a lot of real learning can get lost. Now, in the multiple exam system, the pressure just shifts. It becomes a financial burden and this long, drawn-out anxiety, more like a marathon of stress instead of a single sprint.
But okay, here's where it gets really interesting. While we're all worried about wealthy students getting an advantage from retaking tests, some research actually suggests that having a second chance might be a powerful equalizer.
And the number here is pretty significant. Research has found that students who start out with lower scores can improve by about 0.6 standard deviations when they retake a test. Now, that might sound technical, but it's a huge deal. That's not just a tiny bump, that is a massive, potentially life-changing improvement. For these students, a second chance is a real game changer.
Okay, so more chances are good, right? It seems to help level the playing field, especially for those who need it most. But what's the catch? Does this amazing opportunity accidentally create a whole new set of problems?
Oh, you bet it does. It can lead to something that's been called the tutoring arms race. And you can see the cycle here. A family with money can get stuck in this loop. You take the test, you're not happy, you hire expensive tutors, you retake it, and you just keep going. It turns what should be an opportunity into a competition of who has the deepest pockets.
So, what are we left with? If both systems have these huge, glaring flaws, what's the solution? Well, it turns out that neither system is automatically better or worse. At the end of the day, it all comes down to the details, the specific policies that are built around the tests.
And these are the kinds of questions policymakers have to wrestle with. For instance, should colleges see only your best score, or do they see every single attempt? Big difference. Are you allowed to take the test as many times as you want, or is there a limit? And maybe most importantly, is there financial help for students who can't afford all those retake fees? The answers to these questions change everything.
Let's take a place like Taiwan to see how this plays out in the real world. If they decide to stick with a single exam, they really have to focus on things like backup test dates for emergencies and making sure there are other ways to get into university. But if they shift to multiple exams, they have to think really hard about subsidies for students who need them and creating smart rules to stop that arms race before it even starts.
And that really brings us back to the biggest question of all. What is an exam system for anyway? Is its job to be a perfect one-time snapshot of what a student knows? Or is it supposed to be a tool to find potential and maybe even encourage growth? How a country or a school answers that question, that determines everything. Something to think about. Thanks so much for joining me.